Hi, this is Julie with Beadaholique, and today I want to show you how to do circular brick stitch around a ring. In past videos, we've shown you how to do circular brick stitch and circular brick stitch around a bead. And here's another variation where you're going to take a ring, or in the case where I'm going to demonstrate for you today, a link in a chain, which is essentially just a bunch of rings connected together, how to do circular brick stitch around that. And here's a bracelet which is almost done. I have the last ring to do, and I'm going to do that with you here in this video. One thing to note is if you're going to be using like a chain or some type of ring that has texture to it, where it's like got a ripple effect, you'll see that there's like a little bit of like a ruffled edge here. That means that your brick stitch, when you finish it, is going to have a bit of a rippled effect as well. Whereas if you choose a flat ring that's just smooth all the way around, it's going to go ahead and have a much smoother appearance. So keep that in mind when you're choosing what you're going to do. These are quick links. They would be great for this application, but I do want to show you how to do it on a chain. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some beads. For this particular project, I have size 11/0 Tohos, and then I have some check glass seed beads in size 8/0. I've got myself a size 10 beading needle, some wildfire thread, a thread zapper, and a pair of scissors. So I've already cut myself about 3 feet of the wildfire thread. And to begin, all you're going to need to do is go ahead and tie your thread onto the ring itself. You're going to want to leave a tail of about 5-6 inches. And the amount of thread you cut is going to be dependent on how many rounds you want to make. So for what I'm going to do, I only need about 3 feet. If you're going to do 4 or 5 rounds, you're going to need more than that, or you can just add in a thread later. So I'm just going to make a simple knot first, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a surgeon's knot. So I'm just going through twice instead of once, pull that down, and pull snug. And that's going to secure it on there. So now what I need to do is thread on my needle. A quick tip here is sometimes if your thread is a little too thick to go through your needle or has difficulty doing it, take your fingernail and just run it along the wildfire or the fire line thread, and that's going to flatten it a little bit, and it's going to make it much easier to thread the needle. There we go. So now hold your chain. If you're doing a chain, hold the chain in your hand along with the tail to keep that out of the way. Go ahead and pick up 2 beads to begin with. 1, 2, place that on your needle. Pull it all the way down until it's resting onto your ring. Now we're going to go behind the ring and under. Pull the thread through, but keep those beads on top of the ring. And now we're going to go back up through the second bead we strung. And we're going to pull that. Now we're just going to go ahead and grab 1 bead. Pull that down. Go back behind and under your ring. So you're basically going through your ring. But what you want to do is make sure that that bead stays on the top side and go up through it. Grab another bead. Again, behind, under, and through the ring, keeping that bead up top, and go up through the bead and pull. And what you'll notice is happening now is you're actually creating a thread bridge between each of the beads. And what you're going to do is when you go onto your second row, you're going to be using that thread bridge to secure your second layer. So go ahead, keep repeating the same step, grabbing a bead, securing it to the ring, making sure it stays on top until you've gone all the way around the ring, and then I'll show you how to jump up to your second row. After you've beaded all the way around your ring and you get towards your starting point, you have to make a decision if you're going to have enough room to place another bead between the last bead you strung and the first bead you strung, or if you're going to have to try to close that gap a little bit. You can see here I have a good example. There's just not quite enough room for another bead. I'm going to put one on there, you're going to see what happens. So if I was to try to put this last bead on here, you'll see what happens. There's just not enough room. It starts to bunch up and just is not going to look right. So I'm going to take that off. So what you're going to need to do is try to close that gap as best as you can. And you're going to do that by going ahead, placing your needle through the top of the first bead that you strung, and then back up and under. You're not going around the actual ring, you're just going up and under the actual bead that you strung last. So you're creating a nice loop, and you're going to pull that tight. And by pulling that tight, you actually bring those beads a little bit more together, and that gap isn't quite as apparent. So after you've done that, you're actually ready to step up to your next level. And what I like to do is I like to turn my ring around, and that's because this here is a little bit looser, whereas this thread bridge is going to be tighter. So I go ahead and I rotate, I turn my ring around, and now I'm going to start my second row, and I'm going to start it the same way I began my first. I'm going to pick up 2 beads onto my needle, pull them all the way down. I'm going to go under the thread bridge between the next 2 bottom row beads, pull it tight, and I'm going to go up and under now the second bead I strung. And now I'm going to pick up another bead, just 1, go under the next thread bridge, and go up and under that same bead and pull tight. Now, if you remember when you were doing circular brick stitch around a bead, if you happen to watch that video, you would sometimes have to make a decision, especially if you're going from a larger bead to a smaller bead, if you're going to go every thread bridge, or if you're going to sometimes have it where there's 2 beads per thread bridge. There's no real rule for this. You're not going to just be doing 1 bead per thread bridge. It's going to create too large of a gap between your beads, so you're just going to have to make a decision. Like here was the thread bridge I just went through for this bead here. I'm going to actually go through that same thread bridge again. So I'm going to pick up a bead, go under that thread bridge, and up through that bead again. And now you'll see that my beads are nice and tight together. Now I'm going to do another bead, pick it up, go under the thread bridge, a new one this time, and up and under and through. And now I have to make a decision. Do I go back through this same thread bridge, or do I go to the next one right here, and I'm going to go through the next one. So you're just going to have to make a judgment call. So under and back up through. And you're going to do this all the way around until you've completed your circle again, and then you can either tie off your thread or you can jump up to a 3rd level. And that is how you do circular brick stitch around a ring, or in this case, a chain.